have a difficult question to ask. Why is it that there are so many people who are blind to facts? They don't ask questions, they don't reason, they don't ask for evidence, they simply believe what they've been told. In other words, they have an ideology. Now, you could say that we humans are stupid, irrational, but then that wouldn't be true, would it? We've survived the jungle with all those large animals, the heat and the cold, and instead we've gone on to invent medical science, which saves the lives of countless people. And yet, as we look around ourselves today, we see so many examples of blindness to facts. Take polio. Children who contract polio live a life of extreme unhappiness and abnormality. They cannot move around, they cannot get jobs, they cannot live like other people do. Tragically, just a few drops of polio vaccine could have saved them from this awful fate. But there are religious zealots who say that those drops reduce people's fertility, and this will deprive us of having even more mujahids. They will not listen to doctors who say that polio drops have not the slightest effect upon fertility. Instead, they kill polio workers. And so Pakistan and Afghanistan are the only two countries in the world where polio is on the rise. Well, of course, that's terrible. But perhaps you can forgive these people who have never had education, who've lived in the mountains. On the other hand, in the 1950s, in the United States, there was this ideology of anti-communism. And there were lots of people who believed in that, and they thought, among other things, that adding fluoride to the public water supply was a great communist plot. Now, fluoride is a substance that is good for preventing tooth decay, which is why it had been added on to the public water supply. In fact, toothpaste today has fluoride deliberately put in it. But these people thought that this was a plot by Soviet Russia, communist Russia, to weaken the minds of Americans. But the really destructive impact of ideology comes when it captures the minds of hundreds of millions of people. About 200 years ago, there appeared a new political ideology, one that promised freedom from capitalist exploitation. It was invented by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. It said that the working class, which had emerged during the capitalist period, would create a new world in which the proletariat or the working class would obtain political control. Whatever Marx and Engels might have wanted is another matter. But the fact is that in the 20th century there came about a political revolution in Russia, led by the Bolsheviks. But instead of a dictatorship of the proletariat, there was a dictatorship of the Communist Party. And that dictatorship was far more brutal under Joseph Stalin than Russia had ever seen under any king or any emperor. Millions of peasants were killed. It was alleged that they were counter-revolutionaries. In China, Mao Zedong's so-called cultural revolution led to the deaths of millions. Today, in their own countries, Mao and Stalin stand disgraced. But then the question is, why did millions of communists across the globe follow them blindly? Here in Pakistan, we had the Communist Party of Pakistan blindly following the Maoist line that the uprising in East Pakistan was actually a bourgeois uprising and so could not be supported. Never mind the fact that there was a genocide going on over there. It was even worse in Germany, where Adolf Hitler, at the head of the Nazi Party, had convinced Germans that they were the superior people and that they must rule the world. His Nazi ideology demanded the physical elimination of all Jews and communists. He killed them by the millions. Today, the Germans hate Hitler. They ask, what is it that happened to us? Why did we lose our ability to reason, to ask for evidence, to question? Why did we become like rats who followed the Pied Piper down into the river? Why did we succumb to ideology, Nazi ideology? Of course, you could say, well, maybe there wasn't enough education, but that would be wrong because the Germans were the most educated people that there were in those times. They had doctors and engineers and brilliant scientists, and some of them supported the Nazi doctrine. So the question is, why do humans create an ideology and then believe it to be so true that they let it take over their entire mind, just like a virus takes over the CPU of a computer? Why is it that we don't ask for evidence? Now, some neurobiologists say that this is actually a survival need for us to make decisions based upon incomplete knowledge, incomplete evidence. And they say that this takes away the burden of having to reason at every single point. To give an example, suppose that you're in the jungle 50,000 years ago and you hear a slight rustle in the bushes. Well, are you going to make a calculation of which animals are present over here, what the dangers are, this, that? No, you will get ready to fight or you will get ready to run away. So therefore, you need to make fast decisions based upon incomplete evidence. And so therefore, it was a survival need in those times. Let's face it, an ideology is so very convenient. You don't need to think because all the answers are there already. You don't have to weigh the evidence this way or that way. Instead, what you have with an ideology is a filter that you put before yourself, and it's very much like the kind of blinkers that you put upon bullocks and donkeys and mules and horses. Why do we put blinkers on them? Because we don't want them to see everything, else they'll get confused, else they'll start running this way or that way, and they won't do what we want them to do. Each one of us also has had blinkers put before our eyes, me and you too. So now the question is whether we can take them off, cast them aside, and look at the world without the filter of an intervening ideology. I think we can, but it's very hard work. You have to be able to evaluate critically, to hold different thoughts within your mind all at the same time, to read good books, to explore alternatives, meet different kinds of people, read good books. And of course, a good education helps, but that's no guarantee. After all, you'll see so many people with high degrees holding the most absurd opinions. So, although there is no panacea, and not everyone will have an open mind ever, but time is on our side. If you look at the world today, and you look at the world 100, 200, 500 years earlier, you see that reason, rationality are gaining traction, and so victory is going to be ours.